class. Today we are going to read the chapter Packing. This is the second part of our video for this chapter Packing. So we'll start from sixth paragraph. Of course, I had to turn every mortal things out now. And, of course, I could not find it. I rummaged the things up into much the same state that they must have been before the world was created. And when chaos reigned, of course, I found George and Harry's 18 times over, but I couldn't find my own. I put the things back one by one and held everything up and shook it. Then I found it inside a boat I repacked once more. As Jerome was looking for his toothbrush in his bag, he had to remove everything, but he could not find it. He created a mess. He found his friend's brushes many times but could not find his brush. He kept everything back into the bag one by one, shaking each item, and finally found the brush inside a boot. Then, once again, he repacked the bag. Now, seventh paragraph. When I had finished, George asked if the soap was in. I said I didn't care a hang whether the soap was in or whether it wasn't. And I slammed the bag shut and strapped it, and found that I had packed my spectacles in it, and had to reopen it. It got shut up finally at 10:05 p.m. and then there remained the hampers to do. Harris said that we should be waiting to start in less than 12 hours time and thought that he and George had better do the rest. And I agreed and sat down and they had a go. So now Jerome closed the bag. George asked it if the soap was there inside it. As Jerome was impotent, he replied that he wasn't concerned if it was there or not because he got tired with the packing and now he was searching the things again and again. So he said he don't care whether it is there or not. Close the lid and strap the bag. Then he realized that he had packed his spectacles in it too, and now he had to open it again to get them finally. So finally, the bag was closed at 5 p.m. Then they had to pack the food baskets. Harris said that as they were left with less than 12 hours to leave, they should pack the basket as well. Now, Harris decided that the food basket would be packed by him and George. Now, Jerome agreed because he already got tired with the packing, so he agreed to take his turn for some rest while his friends packed the basket, that is, food basket. They began in a light hearted spirit, evidently intending to show me how to do it. I made no comment. I only waited with the expectation of George. Harris is the worst packer in this world. I looked at the piles of plates and cups and kettles and bottles and jars and pies and stoves and cakes and tomatoes, etc., and felt that the things would soon become exciting. Here, George and Harris started packing the hampers in a happy mood. They wanted to show Jerome that they could pack well. Jerome waited for them to create a mess because he considered Harris to be the worst packer in the world. Jerome looked at the piles of plates, cups, kettles, and bottles, the jars, pies, cakes, and tomatoes, which had to be packed into the hampers. He thought that as the boys would mess up, it would be an interesting thing to watch. Now, here he said, it did. They started with breaking a cup. That was the first thing they did. They did that just to show you what they could do and to get you interested. It means the scene became interesting as they broke a cup of the at the start. In the beginning of packing only they broke up the cup. Jerome says that they broke the cup to indicate that they could do that too and to make things interesting. Now here, then Harris packed the strawberry jam on top of a tomato and squashed it. And they had to pick out the tomato with a teaspoon. Squashed means crush or squeeze something with force so that it become flat, soft or out of shape. So Harris placed a jar of strawberry jam on top of the tomatoes. The tomatoes were squeezed by the jar and then they removed the damaged tomato with the help of a spoon. Now here in ninth paragraph, and then it was George's turn and he trod on the butter. I didn't say anything, but I came over and sat on the edge of the table and watched them. It irritated them more than anything I could have said. I felt that it made them nervous and excited, and they stepped on things and put things behind them and then couldn't find them when they wanted them. And they packed the pies at the bottom and put heavy things on top and smashed the pies in. So here, trod on means stepped on. So next, George stepped on the butter. Jerome remained silent but sat on the edge of the table to watch the action, that what they are doing. So his silence irritated his friends. They became nervous and stepped on the things. They kept the things behind them and later, when they wanted them, they could not find them. They placed the pies on the bottom and kept heavier things on them, which smashed the pies. So here in 10 point, they upset salt over everything, and as for the butter, I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. After George had got it off his slipper, they tried to put it in the kettle. It wouldn't go in, and was it wouldn't come out. They did scrape it out at last and put it down on a chair, and Harris sat on it, and it stuck to him, and they went looking for it all over the room. So here it means the boys overturned the can of salt on everything. Jerome says that they created a lot of confusion. With the small piece of butter, he had not seen anyone create so much mess with butter was worth 1 and 2 pence, meaning it was very small piece. As they did, George removed it from his slipper and tried to put it into the kettle. Of as he was unable to do that, he placed it on a chair and Harris sat on it. No, both the friends are doing hell with the work, hell with the packing of the hamper or the basket. Now, as he placed it on a chair and Harris sat on it, the butter stuck to him. He stood up, and both the boys went around the room looking for that piece of butter, and they don't know that he already sat there and that butter stuck to him. Now, 11th paragraph. I'll take my oath. I put it down on that chair, said George, staring at the empty seat. I saw you do it myself not a minute ago, said Harris. Then they started round the room again looking for it. And then they met again in the center and stared at one another. Most extraordinary thing I ever heard of, said George. So mysterious, said Harris. Then George got round at the back of Harris and saw it. Why, here it is all the time, he exclaimed indignantly. Now here it is mentioned. Where, cried Harris, spinning round. Stand still, can't you? Roared George, flying after him, and they got it off and packed it in the teapot. So here, once again, the things were there. Like George looked intently at the empty seat on which he had placed the butter few minutes ago. He took an oath of truthfulness that he had placed it there not even a minute ago. Once again they searched in the room. They met in the middle of the room empty handed. George said that the disappearance of the butter was the most amazing thing that he had known. Harris said that the disappearance of the butter was a mystery. George saw the butter sticking to Harris' back and said that it had been there all this while. And Harris turned around and asked where it was. George flew to Harris' back and asked him to stand still. They removed the butter and packed it inside the teapot. Now, 12 point. Montmorency was in it all. Of course, Montmorency's ambition in life is to get in the way and be sawn at if he can square him in anywhere where he particularly is not wanted and be a perfect nuisance and make people mad and have things thrown at his head, then he feels his day has not been wasted. So here, Jerome's pet dog Montmorency participated in all this. His aim was to interrupt everyone and then get scolded for it. Jerome adds that if Montmorency was able to twist into a place and create nuisance by angering people and get things thrown at him in return, he felt that he had utilized the day in a good way. Now we'll continue this chapter in our third video. So that's all for today.